Fighting game developers, I think we need to rethink the way we make single player content. Like, in all of our arcade modes and story modes and so on and so forth, we basically just throw the player into matches versus an AI. And I'm realizing this isn't actually how most games do single player. Most games have this slow process that allows you to get used to different tools as you play the single player. Like, look at the intro level of Mega Man X. There's a long stretch of highway where you don't have to jump, and then there's a small gap, and then you learn to jump. There's a long stretch of highway where there are a bunch of little enemies, and then there's a big enemy, and it teaches you how to charge your buster. You eventually get thrown down a big pit, and that teaches you how to wall jump. You start the game with very few tools, and then new challenges are presented to you that make you use more tools. It's the same thing with every other genre of game. In shooters, you just start with a pistol, and all you need to learn how to do is pull the trigger. And then eventually you get into situations that require you to use sniper rifles and shotguns and other types of guns. In racing games, you start with a simple circular track, and then you move up to more and more tracks that require you to have better control over your braking and acceleration. And I'm wondering if that's what we need to do with fighting games, because we could integrate that into a single-player mode in pretty interesting ways. Like, think about it this way. Imagine you were going through the single-player mode of a Street Fighter game. You're playing as Ryu, and you're going up against Sagat. And you could damage Sagat as usual, but eventually his life won't go down anymore. The only way to take him out is by landing a Shoryuken and creating that trademark scar. You could code the AI to never block a DP, and you can make the moment when you land the DP really cinematic. And that would teach someone how to DP as you play. Like, maybe then the AI is coded to try and knock you down, and then you learn how to wake up DP. Like, maybe that's what we need to be doing. Maybe we need to rethink the single player of fighting games and get away from the arcade modes of yore, which were largely meant to suck quarters from you. And, like, we'd really have to integrate it. There are single-player modes that have done stuff like this before, but they've just kind of given you mindless tasks. We need to make this part of the story, make this part of the experience. And we also need to reward the player for doing so. Maybe roster unlocks, I don't know, that won't sit well with people, but unlock something, make them feel like they've gotten more powerful. Heck, it could even be like a costume or something. It just seems like this is a really simple lesson about teaching people skills that other genres have learned that the fighting game genre hasn't quite learned yet. And I think maybe if we adopt that, if we really put some thought into our single-player modes, it would be a lot more welcoming for a lot more people.